Would you all pray with me? Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. A 30-something-year-old man rides a baby donkey down a road in some unimportant part of the city of Jerusalem. The people come out of their houses recognizing the man. He's the one who had been healing people. He had been talking about a world turned upside down, a world where peace and justice would finally kiss, the world that they had long dreamed of. And they do for him what they would do for any earthly king. They grab their cloaks and they lay them down on the road. They grab leafy branches that they had just cut from the field and they wave them in victory, laying them down before the young man on the donkey. And they shout, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." And he goes through Jerusalem on that baby donkey, and the people keep shouting, "Hosanna." Hosanna does not mean, "Hooray, we're glad to see you." Hosanna means, "Save us." Hosanna is the cry of a people who are ready for the tables of the temple to be flipped, ready for the last to be first, because they are the last. They are the least of these. And they cry out for the world to finally change. This story that we tell every Palm Sunday is often called the triumphal entry. And that it is. Jesus rides in on a colt, a donkey about 4 years old, one that's never been ridden. And some folks would be surprised at this, making an assumption that a humble donkey is no place for a king, supposing that some sort of fancy horse might be a better fit. But kings and royals often rode on donkeys in the Israelite tradition. King Saul and King David both rode on donkeys. Kings rode donkeys in times of peace. They rode horses into war. And so the demarcation that Jesus is making here is that his power will not be the power of violence. His power will be the power of peace. Jesus does not need violence because he has spent his whole life building powerful relationships, powerful communities. He wove the strand of his life so deftly into the fabric of the people that he does not need to assert power over them. He has the power of communion with them. I had the unique joy of going to a donkey sanctuary a few weeks ago on retreat, and I learned something there. Donkeys still have an intact instinct for survival. And that is why people think donkeys are stubborn, because donkeys will do everything in their power to ensure their own survival. More than a horse or an ox, which might just follow you off a cliff if you told them to, a donkey understands itself as vulnerable. It will not let itself be forced into something that it thinks is dangerous. And right next to that instinct for their own survival, donkeys also yearn to be useful. They love having jobs. They love to carry the load that has been given to them. And they're constantly balancing these two instincts, the desire to keep themselves safe and the desire to be of use. And on that day, that donkey chose to be of use. This donkey is a colt, a baby donkey that has never been ridden. And he must have been so scared that instinct for survival doesn't just go away. He had been tied up, maybe waiting for a bucket of oats to come his way. But then he allows himself to be led away by two strangers. Maybe they had to cajole him a little, but he went with them. Then he let the strange man with the kind voice ride astride him, the first person he had ever carried. And then the loud crowds and the yelling and the weight of the man on his back, the feeling of the cloaks and the palms under his feet, the utter strangeness of it all for an evolutionarily risk-averse creature. He had to have been so brave. Maybe, just maybe, he borrowed some courage from Jesus. Or maybe it was the other way around, Jesus borrowing from him. And together they come into the city, a triumphal entry. So often, despite all the education, school-wise and life-wise, I have had otherwise, I think power will look like a war horse. And again, God is teaching me that power is going to look a lot more like a donkey. The power of bearing each other up. The power of letting our desire to be useful win out over our desire to stay safe. The power of stepping forward, though bewildered and uncertain, but still brave, still willing. The power of carrying God's love into the world even when we don't understand how or why or where we're going. The power of allowing our own agenda to be interrupted because God might have some use for us. The power of being cheered on by strangers, to let them lay down their cloaks and their palms to make the road a little softer on our tired feet. The donkey did not ask for this strange and dangerous job. The donkey did not audition, did not prove that he could carry the weight of this large man, did not prove he could complete the task. He just stepped, one dusty foot in front of the other, forward. Then, as now, the world needs good news. You know this. I know this. And then, as now, it is dangerous to be the bearers of good news. At the very least, it will break your heart. God's world-changing, power-shifting love still needs to be carried into this world. And God, help us, we are called to be the ones to bear the good news into the hazards and chaos of everything that is happening all around us. God has need of you. The world has need of you, your willingness, your courage, your surprising strength. God needs you to carry their world-changing love into a world that still cries out, Hosanna, save us. But it will not be us that needs to save anyone. But it will be the love that we are called to bear to one another. The love of God in Jesus, the love that has long been turning the world around, that has long been healing hearts and minds, that has long been stitching communities back together. The love that will and that can and that does indeed save us again and again and again. Thanks be to God. Amen.